right, guys. Hey, welcome to the Monday Morning Wake Up Podcast. And I got my good buddy, Zach Twardowski on. Zach, how you doing, bro?
I'm awesome, man. And thank you for letting me get on and help out. I appreciate it.
Well, you got it, man. Well, hey, I say this every time and I mean it. Every single week, I sit back and I think, like, who can I have on that can bring as much value, as the most value to everybody that's leaning in on a Monday morning? They're thinking like, okay, new week. We know if you're in insurance, it's like the national reset button. All right. You could have had a great week last week. Congratulations. You're broke if you don't do nothing this week, right? Like it's a new week. Success is rented and the rent's due every single day of every single week. And so, or if you had a bad week, hey, great news. Reset it. Let's make some adjustments, course corrections. But my goal is, hey, how do we go out there and attack this week with the right mindset that really puts us and positions us to go out there, and when we put our feet behind it, we see the best possible result. And Zach, I couldn't think of anybody better, bro. It's been a pleasure, man, getting to know you on a personal basis and getting to know you as just a valuable business partner. Your personal production, you led by the example, all the way to the tune of like doing almost $1 million on your own pen, and then building a business that you built, which last month you paid, what was it?
We did 1.75 last month.
1.75 million in paid business. And this is the cool thing. What was it in January this year?
We did just over $1 million in January.
The first month over $1 million was January?
Yeah. We just hit $1 million right in January.
What did you do the January before? What did you do January of 2020?
I think we did like 175,000 or just maybe shy of 200,000.
Buckle up. So if you're like, man, I want to get my mindset to this level of just growth where I just every day my growth is just it's evident, right? Well, heck, you guys lean in, listen, because Zach, the stuff we're gonna go in today, it's gonna be a lot of the things that really I think allowed that to take place as we spoke before this podcast. That if anybody can take this stuff, they can do the exact same thing. There was nothing special. You just made some decisions and you did some different things. You become obsessed. You really went all in the past like 18 months. That's taking you from 170,000 to 1.7 million in the month of April, which if you're watching this any other time than April of, or May of 2021, it's a lot higher. And so before we get into that, guys, I just want to remind you real quick to go ahead and subscribe. You want to go ahead and like this, comment. If you're watching this on all the different platforms, I mean, you got Facebook, you got Instagram, Spotify, iTunes, but on YouTube, we pull comments off every single week and we do a drawing, and it's very much at random. Casey puts it in an algorithm or whatever it does, it's special and it pops up the comment, and that person wins $250 in lead credits. So make sure to comment below. Anything that you took from the podcast would be great. I mean, I think that some of the best stuff I've taken from a training event is hearing others people's feedback on what they took. And I'm like, man, that was good. And the way they articulate allows me to pull more from it. And so maybe share in the comments anything you took away. You can comment about any questions. You could also comment about any suggestions of topics that you want us to cover week in and week out. Also, make sure to share this, guys. I know everybody inherently, I believe, wants to make a difference and be an impact player, a meaningful, specific to others. And maybe just a simple share will be something that makes a difference for the person that wouldn't have seen it if you didn't share it. So that being said, dude, let's kind of get into it, man. Love to have Zach. Let's kick this off and talk about, like, I believe when it comes to personal sales, like being convicted that what you have to offer is so much more valuable than what you get in that transaction as far as a paycheck. It almost allows you to behave in such a way where you're transformational for the client, not just transactional. And I believe that's the same thing with this business. Can you kind of talk about like your conviction in what you're doing? When did you get to the level where it started to make a big difference, where it was like, I'm convicted about this, I'm obsessed about this. This is going to take me to where I want to go with my family. Maybe talk about how important that was. And, was it uncomfortable taking the risk that would really reveal that you were convicted that this is where all in Zach was going to be?
Yeah, no doubt, dude. And I appreciate you having me on, and I appreciate all the help even before I got to know you, like listening to this call early on. And I was going to reference what helped me on the personal production side since I heard from this call, but Listening to this when I started the tail end of 2017, I think you were still doing it every Monday, right? Every Monday morning on a phone call, and it's a lot better now because Zoom and or podcast form. And I really, we've come a long way, I guess, right? But that call really helped me a lot early on because I came into this with no background in sales, and not that there was no support, but it was something I was unsure of based on kind of what my family, like them all being doctors and that kind of be the expectation. I was unsure if I was gonna be able to make this work, unsure about the industry. I knew nothing about it, right? So this call really helped me shift my mindset where I was very negative. Like I remember early on, Paul, I used to always think like, what if, and then insert some negative comment. You know what I mean? Like, what if this doesn't work? What if I buy these leads and I don't sell anything? What if this client doesn't buy? And then listening to stuff like this, and then other people really helped me change that to go, what if I buy these leads and sell 10 grand this week? What if this client and the next one and the next one, I help them all, right? And I started being able to shift my mindset from what if, insert negative thing, right, to what if, and then insert positive thing. And a lot of that was from listening to the mindset stuff that, maybe you inherently had or didn't, but that you learned and were able to articulate, when I was just getting started here. So I really do appreciate that. As far as the conviction, I think it happened in stages for me. I understood it much more soon on the personal production side, because I remember you always used to say on that call, can you picture that you're the last person that's going to see that person? They filled out a request, and that like tonight when you leave, that tomorrow morning they're not going to wake up, but only right? No one else knows, and you can't tell them that for sure, because that'd be weird, right? They'd be like, how do you know that? That's kind of creepy. But like only and then how hard would you push and how convicted would you be? And I remember you hearing that, and it really struck home when I think it was like the 10th or 11th policy I wrote, the person died like 3 months later. And then I was writing about 10, 11, 12 grand a month. And then once that happened, I started taking it very serious and stopped just allowing clients to tell me they were going to put it off, think about it. And I was able to lean back on that story, and I had a lot of conviction moving forward. And I'm like, it doesn't matter if you tell me no, but if you want to, you can't say you want to think about this. So something does happen, it allowed me to be very convicted and get the client to either move or, decline coverage. And either way, I was okay with it, but at least I knew I did my job and pushed them as far as they needed to be pushed. Because it's important. The other thing I picked up too, Paul, was people don't want to have people in their house every day, right? Like if you were getting your plumbing done, you wouldn't want to have 10 different plumbers come in and quote it and everything, right? You want one guy to come in, fix it, and get out of your house. And if the one guy comes in and fixes it and it's not something that you see as crucial, you may be like, whatever, I'm not going to deal with it, right? I'll deal with it next year or whatever. And this is kind of the same thing, where it's like, if we go in there and they have a bad experience with us as an agent and they're looking for insurance, like if you go in and you're having a bad day and you're rude to them, like you snap on them, you say something off the cuff, you pressure them, you're not polite, whatever you do, you don't do a good job, then they may never have anyone else there to get insurance again. And I started taking that very seriously, because I'm like, this family will be in big trouble with that guy's in, and if I don't do a good job of painting a proper picture for them, I might be the last person that ever sits with them. And if that's the case and I do a bad job, then they die without insurance. I didn't do everything I possibly could have. Then what happens in their future is partially on me if I didn't do everything I could have, right? And I think I started adapting that mindset. And then as soon as that happened, I stopped caring. Like I remember early on, the first couple months, Paul, I would ask a lot. I'd be like, I'm going through a sales slump right now, right? Like you've heard a lot of people say that, I'm sure.
Yep.
So when I stopped thinking of it as a sales slump, and I started being more upset that I wasn't helping the families, like that I left them in a compromising situation that could affect their kids and future generations. And I stopped doing that. And then I started focusing on the fact that I started focusing on that, and I stopped focusing on the fact that I didn't make a sale and I wasn't going to make money. Then I started selling a lot more, because I'd be willing to say stuff to you like, Paul, you told me that you work full time, your wife doesn't work, you have 4 or 5, I can't even keep track at this point. I think you have 5 kids now?
Soon to be 5 kids. So 4
soon to be 5 kids.
This podcast is playing, 5
4 when this podcast is playing, 5 very soon, right? So you have 5 kids, and you told me your wife doesn't work, and if something happens to you, then she can't stay in this house, or she has nothing to fall back on income wise. I would not be doing my job if I didn't point that out to you. And if it's something I did, that's okay. We can send someone else out. But if not, we need to get some sort of insurance in place for you. Like being able to say statements like that, they can tell that you care about them then, right? Like that's like, okay, that person actually cares about me. I mean, I don't care if you do it or don't do it. If you want me to grab someone else who's not me because you don't like the way my face looks or whatever, I'll have them come out here and get you insurance. But you obviously need it, and I don't want to leave your family in this compromising position. When you get to that level of certainty where you do a good job of unpacking their situation and then seeing how bad it could be without it, then you can really provide a lot of value, and you can talk in a convicted way where it doesn't seem like you're trying to sell them, right? And that's the other thing that I started to realize, dude, is I was okay. So me and my wife, I have sold insurance for 3.5 years, right? I sold full time in the field for about 3 years, and I think about it all day, every day, basically, right? When I'm in the field, how many times did me and Deb talk about how much insurance I have? I realized the other day, never, because she asked me, how much life insurance do you have? And I have a lot. Like I think I probably have like 5, 6 million. I have a lot of insurance on myself, right? But she asked me the other day, how much insurance do you have? Like just out of the blue. And I'm like, dude, that's crazy, right? Isn't that crazy that me and her have never talked about it? That's what I do for a living. So I think what happens sometimes is people get in this routine of seeing these situations and understanding the families need it. But if you can keep in mind that, even we don't talk about it with our families, there's no chance that those guys are sitting down, that most of our clients are sitting down and going, oh my gosh, like what does this look like if you don't have life insurance? It's not something that comes up. So your job is to go in there, paint the picture, show them exactly what it looks like without the insurance, and then provide the solution. And if they pick it and make a responsible decision, great, you did everything you could. If they decide not to go through with it, you still did everything you could if you were convicted and showed them what it would look like without it. So I wanted to cover that first on the sales side, Paul. Does that all make sense?
Dude, it makes perfect sense, man. And I'm just thinking like it even becomes like more enjoyable, almost like fun, kind of like
Mm-hmm.
a game when it's not about you, it's only about the client. Meaning that like when you decide to take down any offense, like a lot of times, as a
Yeah.
producer, it's just people, you build these walls of offense, well, that offended me. Well, if you're getting offended, you're not being effective. And so I know for me, Zach, like when I took away any offense and it was really just to help the client. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how dumb what they're saying is, if they're demeaning, degrading, whatever. How can I come across where I posture myself where I'm in control? I get the posture back, but they know I care and they really know I don't care if they don't. I care about them because I care about people. I'm good at what I do, but I don't care if they get it or don't get it. It makes no difference to me. And then it was like a game. So when I got like objections or a tough client or whatever, dude, I almost said it became fun because I never
Mm-hmm.
took it personal. Before I was taking it personal, like, oh, how could they say something like that? Or I'd take it personal, like, well, why would you not care about your family like that? Or I would take it personal, like, well, I need to get paid. And now I'm not getting paid. And everything was personal. And I remember Sean Mike telling a story, and dude, it really like just made a lot of sense for me. He was a social worker, and I think you might even heard him say this story, Zach. It was a couple weeks back, and he said that when things really changed for him, as far as where he was like he became effective, was he was with he was at a focus group with this guy that had been beating his spouse, and I can't remember his parole or something like that, but anyways, the moral of the story is the guy was had this ego and he was just a dirt bag. And Sean started to harass him about just like something he had said, right? He was just digging him because he's like, how can you hit your spouse, And so like it was like, I'm digging this guy, I'm gonna mess with him. And at the end of it, the person called Sean in, the manager, and she said, did that make you feel more like a man to do that, to make fun of him and mess with him, or call him out in front of everybody? And he said, well, I know. She said, well, what you don't realize is that he's not going to take it out on you. He's going to go home and take it out on her. And Sean was like, so I was taking all the stuff that I had been raised with, the single mom and all this kind of stuff. I let that come out of me. And it was based off of how I felt and what I thought was right. And at the end of the day, what's right is, how can I communicate in such a way that stops the situation I don't want to have happen from happening? And he didn't even realize that he was making it worse. And I think sometimes that's the same thing when we go in the field, is when we're not so focused on the fact that at the end of the day, the chief objective is always the same. How can I serve this client? Conviction of what you're doing is not peddling carpet where it's like, nah, they didn't buy carpet from me, no big deal. No, you're probably the last person that's going to sit with them. That's a big deal. And the same thing leads into your business. When you talk to your agents and you work with your team, if it's always centered around their best interest, even when an agent, acts entitled or complains or whatever. If you can always think, how can I package this in such a way that can help them remove the things that are keeping them from growing the way they want to grow, and then giving them some things that they need to have that's going to allow them to grow to the way they want to grow. Well, then the way you package it won't be based off of what your offense is or what your self-interest is. It's going to be based off the betterment of them. And that's true love, is putting long-term best interests of people first. And that's how you build anything great, right? That's how you make a significant difference, not just have a successful career. I love that, dude. Can you talk about, Zach, kind of your, well, let me ask you this related to what we're talking about here. Do you think that when you're convicted in what you're doing, that even when things don't go the way you want them to go, maybe no sales, no shows, chargebacks, the stuff that, like this, it just sucks. The stuff that's a part of the business that nobody likes, agent falls off, whatever. Do you think that it's easier to not create a new narrative of like, maybe this ain't gonna work, or maybe this, but you're able to look at it in such a way where you can actually see opportunity in the challenge, or you can take something good from it? And do you have anything that you can kind of talk to or allude to that maybe you experienced that firsthand in your business?
Yeah, dude, I think early on I didn't have the proper expectation that stuff like that was going to happen. So I didn't build it into the business in my like mental framework of the business, right? So now like when I'm talking to agents about, I'm like, hey, just so you know, you are going to get no-showed. Your people are going to cancel. You're going to get there and they're not going to let you in their house. But what we do is crazy, because you can write, if you just write like 3 policies a week, okay, one will pay your lead bill, the other 2 will let you net $2,000 a week on average. And if you only sell 3 policies a week, you'll make over $100,000 net per year. So this is a crazy business. But if it was all good, then everyone would just do it. And there's a lot of mentally challenging things. People get tied up on things like chargebacks and cancellations, etc., because they don't build it into their business. They don't expect it beforehand. So and I always use myself, I'm like, so early on, I didn't expect that stuff and it freaked me out every single time. And then now what I changed was I realized I wasn't quite as good at almost everything in this business. So I built it into my schedule. And by that, I meant I started running 30 appointments per week, and it flushed everything else out on a consistent basis. Because what I would do before is I'd have a good week, I'd write $8,000. And that was a good week back then, right? I'd write $8,000. And then the next week I'd take the week off. And then I'd have one chargeback, and then I'd have no money because I spent it when I was going out and hanging out and not working. And then I'd be in a hole, and I'd ride this emotional roller coaster and financial roller coaster. And then when everything shifted for me was when I just fell in love with the process and the activity rather than focusing on week to week results. So meaning whenever my only focus became every week, I need to at least book 30 real legitimate appointments. I need to sit with 20 out of those people, and then the rest will take care of itself. It did a couple of things. It accounted for all the chargebacks, right? Because Paul, even if you're new and you suck like I did when I was in the beginning, dude, even when I was not writing much business, when I sat with 20 people, I'd still write 5 apps, which is not good, to be clear. But if you're there, just know if you keep doing the same activity, you'll get a lot better. And then all of a sudden you'll look up, and that five apps you read out of 20 will be 15 in a year if you stay with it. But what most people don't understand, and they want this instant gratification, is that, if your 5 doesn't go to 15 in the first couple months, then they're ready to be out. And I think of it like this, and this is an easy analogy for me to draw just because of the people I've grown up with. My wife's in medical school, right? So they go through here. You can make, fair to say, your first year here, you could make $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 if you go out and really get after it, right? So doctors, to make that same income, go through 4 years undergraduate, 2 years of medical school, then 2 years of rotations after that, and then 4 years of residency. And that they specialize, which is what would get them to make that $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year, right? They have to go through 2 more years, and they have to pay $200,000 minimally for the school. So understanding that's how much they have to do for this. If you're expecting to just come in and make that amount of money, you have to be able to be willing to do things that other people in the industry won't be willing to do, right? That's how capitalism works. You get paid for stuff that other people aren't willing to do. So if you can understand that, then if you understand that if you can run 30 appointments a week and get better and work really hard and work not 40 hours a week, but 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, it's still a lot shorter of a period than the 12 to 15 years and $200,000 in debt you'll go to become a doctor, make $500,000 a year. But there has to be some willingness to treat it as if that's your real profession and treat it like they treat it. Otherwise, you can't make that type of money.
That's
So I think when I started understanding it that way and comparing them, I'm like, people that make this amount of money don't just roll out of bed at 9 a.m., right? And go run 3 or 4 appointments and call it a day. People that make the kind of money are disciplined. They're the top 1% performers in the country, right? So what do people like that do? They wake up at 5 a.m. They do something mentally. They exercise. They eat well. They work hard. They care about people. They're trying to bring other people with them. It's not all about them, right? And I think when I started understanding that, then I started making a lot more money and started having a lot more success.
I
So I
love.
think if you can frame it in your head that way, dude, like, and I think about it now, dude, my wife right now is at home studying for her board exams. Okay. They give them a 6 week period where they have to, for one test, and she had her schedule laid out for it. All the medical students do the same thing, right, Paul? They start at 7 a.m. and they study till 7 p.m. every day. And they have to do this 3 times through medical school. And to make, on average, doctors make like 400 grand a year, average, I think, depending on where you live in the country, right? So, I mean, and our path is much easier, but it can't be where you do nothing, right? You have to put in the same amount of activity and study this job like you're studying to become a doctor or a lawyer. And if you're good at the sales side, then study the building side the same way, right? That's where I got tied up, dude. I was like, I figured out the sales side, the building side's gonna be the exact same. And what I stopped doing was what I did to learn how to sell. Like when I learned how to sell, I looked what you were doing. I watched all these videos and I talked to a million people about getting better in the field. And I was like, I'm just gonna be able to figure out the building side of my own, which is arrogant, right? I'm like, no, I didn't learn the selling side by myself. Now I have to go back to do the same thing I was doing before and let everyone who's been there before teach me what to do and bring me up with them, because everyone wants to help, right?
I love that, dude. I mean, there's so much value packed in what you just said, dude. Like, dude, for me, Zach, I almost thought, when I got just destroyed like a terrible week, or when I was making the 3.5 hour drive, or at times like the 7 hour drive to Santa Clara, was it? Yeah, Santa Clara County, San Jose,
Yeah.
and leaving at like 3 a.m. and then getting back in the door at 3 a.m. the next day. I don't know, dude. Like I almost felt like excited about the fact that I was building my deserve more factor. Like I just knew like
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be like this, like somebody said, man, when you had a bad week, when you had 9 no shows where you're like super discouraged. Well, I was disappointed and I was frustrated because I want to win, and nobody likes, bad results and a low leaderboard, but I was almost like, good. Like this is good that this is happening, because it's supposed to suck. It's supposed to be painful if there needs to be a lot of, payoff coming. It's like nowadays, I think everybody wants to get swole without getting sore. Man, you look great. Well, that means you are sore. You got sore in the gym, dude. Like,
Yeah.
like it wasn't like you walked in and you kind of walked around like some of those guys that just like pace around the gym for 2 hours. I'm like, did you even pick something up? Like you talk to everybody knows him. Hey, there's Bill. It's like, well, Bill, it didn't look like he works out, because Bill don't freaking work out. He goes to the gym and he socializes. He's not
Right.
sore ever. Therefore, he never has a visible appearance of being swole. But nowadays, that's what everybody thinks. Like, oh, it'll be good. No, it's supposed to be 4 a.m. I'm up. I'm paying the price. I'm getting in the door late. I'm taking calls that I don't feel like taking. I'm doing things I don't want to do. That's a great thing. I love what you said. And I remember reading that in a book a long time ago. And it was one of my favorite books because it actually was like 4 pages long. I think it's like 7-page book.
Mm-hmm.
They call it a book. So I feel like, oh, I read a book a month for the first time. But it said, successful people do the things that failures don't like to do. Not that they like to do them, but they do them anyway. And it said, no, successful people form the habit of doing the things that failures don't like to do. And that's the ticket, dude. Like nobody
Yeah.
likes to wake up at 4 a.m. until you do it long enough. And then there's no difference. Nobody likes to, get in the door at 11, 12 o'clock at night from working until you do it long enough. And then you don't know the difference. Nobody likes it. It's just the way it is. Nobody likes to invest $1,500 a week in leads if you've never invested in a business in your entire life. Until you do it long enough, it becomes habitual. Nobody likes going to the gym until you go to the gym so long that it's harder for you not to go to the gym than it is for you to go to the gym, because that's now your new normal. It's your new habit. It's that simple stuff. Zach, how do you, I mean, this is so good, dude. Like that point right there that you talked about, the 2 points you made so far are worth everything this week. Everybody could not just be, if they could just not be hearers, but if they could be doers, it would make such a big difference on what was articulated. Did you, like, I know you talked about emotionally kind of high and low, which is very normal in this business. And I think that's one of the probably biggest things that keeps people from reaching their potential and maybe even causes them to fail in the business, is that bipolar emotional state when it comes to the business. Did were you able to look at like numbers? Like, did you have a ratio where you knew if you got X amount of leads, dials, appointments? Did you ever kind of use that as a way to help balance that? Was there other things that you used? I mean, did you have a ratio? How did you also balance that emotional state out?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, there was two things, right? Sean always says business isn't personal, right? And I asked him, I was like, can you explain that a little bit more? He's like, people get so emotional about like little things that happen or like little results. And if we could be as obsessed with our activity and all the things that we're doing as we are emotional, if we could get as emotional with our activity, if we don't do what we're supposed to do, as we do with how disappointed we are when the issue paid leaderboard comes out and you're lower than you thought. If you were as emotional about it, doing the work ahead of time as you are with that, then you would never be worried about the result, right? And then for me, dude, I'm naturally a procrastinator and pretty lazy, which might sound weird, but I really am. So what I had to do was build everything into my schedule in advance and hold myself to it. Because when I write, I noticed this about myself, dude. If I write something down and say I'm going to do it, it's a wrap. It's happening, right? But so like what I had to, and I just know that I'm competitive. So I'm like, if I write something down and say I'm going to hit this goal, I'm going to hit it. And like last year, I was like, we're going to be at $1 million a month by Jan, and we did it. And I'm like, I should have set better goals. We probably would have done a little bit more, right? But so what I started doing is combining the things. I started getting crazy obsessed with the activity that we needed to put in, and we do it in all areas of our business now, right? But as a producer, my activity goal was 30 solid appointments per week. And what I would do to build that out is I'd go, okay, I need to run, if it's a 4-week month, I'd go, I need to run 120 appointments this month, okay? And this might sound a little obsessive and compulsive to some people, which it probably is, but this is what I did anyway. So I would write on Monday, okay, I'd be like, I'm dialing from 7:30 a.m. till 11. Then from 11 to 12, I'm gonna, get some food and talk to agents on the phone and help them get going, right? And then I would take that hour lunch break. And then, as you know, as a personal producer, it's by far most important for us to put ourselves first. And then if there's no cash flow, nothing can go anywhere, right? So then what I did is I go, okay, I'm going to dial again into the rest of the day until my appointments are set. And then what I would do is on Monday, I'd have, my schedule written out like that. And then on Tuesday and Wednesday, I would put as many appointments as I needed to get each of those days to make sure that I stayed with my appointment goal for the month, right? So say I knew something was coming up next week. Say we were going to the Dream Center or something for a conference. And I'm like, I'm going to miss 2 days in the field. What I would do on Tuesday, Wednesday is I'd go, okay, now I got to fit 11 appointments on Tuesday, 11 on Wednesday. Gone for 2 days. When I get back, I got to do 11 again to make up for the days I'm missing, where I would do 8 a day, right? And I build in, so I make a month-long appointment goal, and then I would literally write on my top of my calendar how many appointments I needed each day to get to that appointment goal. So then I'm holding myself accountable, right? And then it's like when you wake up in the morning, you're like, why did I set my dang alarm for 4:30? I don't know. There was a reason for it. I better get up, right? I took that same mentality with appointments, and I go, man, I have 7. That's pretty good, but I wrote 8 on here. There must have been a reason I wrote 8. I got to get one more appointment. So I did that to hold myself accountable, because I knew if I got 7, I might be like, dude, that's pretty good. It'll probably be a good day tomorrow. But you never know what that one appointment you're leaving out was. So I did a lot of that stuff to hold myself accountable. And it was all just based around making sure I hit the activity goals. Because I knew for sure if I had 30 appointments, worst case scenario was you sit with 20. And then worst case scenario from there is that you only write 8 apps, maybe. If you sit with 20 people, you write it. So maybe you sit with 2 couples, you write them both, and you don't sell everything else, and you write a couple other policies. And then 8 apps with the average premium now $1,200, you're still at 10 grand a week. Worst case scenario. So that's why I tried to build my schedule around. And then what you see will happen is it'll get better, where maybe you sit with 22, and maybe out of 22 you start closing 14, 15, and then you're writing 20 grand a week. So that's what allowed me to not get emotional, because I didn't ever look at the result, dude. Like if it was really bad and I was like, I only wrote 3 apps out of 20 people I sat with, then I would call you or call someone who was selling a lot of insurance and go, hey man, I need to run through some stuff because I'm messing something up. The activity's good and the sits were good. I just messing up my in-home. Can you help me review it? Right. And I think everyone should keep that in mind. Like the best example I can think of this is like Tom Brady, right? Still has a throwing coach that looks at his throwing and a dietitian. Okay. He's the best ever, and a trainer, right? So he has someone that coaches him up on all these things. Still, it's like, hey man, your throwing motion looks a little bit weird. You got to fix this. Hey, your diet, we got to tweak this. Hey, in the gym, we got to do this. And he's probably one of the best quarterback, probably the best quarterback of all time, but he still has people sitting there coaching him all the time. So I just based all my goals around activity, and I knew if I was doing the proper activity and I wasn't having the result, it was something I needed to change in the home or in the field or whatever. And then on the other side, we started doing the same exact thing activity wise with building a business, right? Because you're never going to get every single agent started. You're never going to have a perfect conversion rate, right? But I just started being obsessed with the activity of getting enough people in, getting new issue paid writers. And then if there was some big fall off, if you have enough activity, it's really easy to see where the fall off is at, right? Like if we're hiring 50 people a week, let's say, and then all of a sudden only 10 of those are getting into the class, then we go, okay, we're hiring enough people, but they're not getting in the class. What tweaks we need to make? Or if we're getting them through to contracting and then they're falling off before they buy leads, then we know it's easy to look at where the tweak is if you have enough activity, because it's blaringly obvious, right? If you track it. But if you don't have very good activity, then it's really hard to tell where you're messing up because there's not a big enough sample size to see what's going on. Does that make sense?
Dude, makes perfect sense, bro. This is so good. I mean, this is the stuff that, like, if you don't know, if I said, hey, tomorrow at 4:00, what are you doing? Tomorrow at 1:00,
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow at 7:00. Guys, if you're listening to this and you're self-employed and you don't have that answer like that, or you can't pull it up and get an answer like that, you're setting yourself up for failure. You just are. This business is
Yeah.
very simple. It takes a game plan, and the game plan has to be calendared. It has to be written to empower you to go out there and actually execute. Nothing's going to happen by intention if it's not intentionally put in. And if you operate by default, you're setting yourself up for failure, because now you're just moving to the whim of the circumstances and situations. And that's, I think, when you get to the end of the day, Zach, my most depleting days where I felt like, man, I'm just emotionally exhausted, was the days when I didn't work from intention, where it was like I didn't really schedule every part of my day out. And then I just got to the end of the day and it's like, but you can get so much more done if you had a schedule. And guys, I mean, Zach, I couldn't agree more with you, dude. I think that, I've always said that my belief is that a lack of structure is the number one reason why people fail. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Somebody said, why FFL is so great? So many people are doing so well. Why do people not work out? They don't have structure. They don't have a scheduled plan. And by nature, dude, we're all probably, kind of lazy and procrastinate and stuff like that, dude. And then if not, even if you're not lazy, you're going to be doing busy work that's going to just exhaust you and give you no outcome that's positive anyways. So, man, you might as well go just chill. And so I think that's so good, like looking at your schedule today and saying, hey, it's Monday morning, it's early. Well, guys, when you hop off this, take 20 minutes and plan. 20 minutes of planning will save you 10 hours of work. That's a reality. So if you just spend 20 minutes of preparing and planning out the rest of your day, it's everything. And then it's also probably, I think it's easier to perform, Zach. You know what I mean? Like when you go out and if you say, okay, from 8 a.m. to noon, I need to hit 5 appointments, right? I need to book 5 appointments because my goal is to book, or say it's 6 appointments because my goal is to book 12 that day. Well, then you have something to shoot for. You get a little payoff, mid throughout the day, because you stuck to it, right? Or if you say I need to make 150 phone calls between 8:00 and 1:00, and you know that will lead to your outcome, right? Because everybody has a ratio, going back to expectation ratios. You can build those ratios into your schedule. And now it's just, I just need to make 150 phone calls. So then you're not high or low about a hang up, no pickups, a series of people not answering the phone. I just need to hit 150 phone calls. And then you get that you get a dopamine hit off of the activity periodically.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is if you wait for a dopamine hit just until you hit the 10,000, you'll get too emotional and discouraged along the way that you might not ever get there. But if you can build in a dopamine hit and it's based off and derived from your activity of accomplishing these hour segments within your schedule, and that might even be from 12 o'clock to 1:00, man, I need to make, these are the 3 most important people I need to talk to today. And this is what I need to talk to them about. And you make the determination the night before or in the morning. So when 12 o'clock comes, okay, I need to take off my dialing hat, my producing hat. Let me go in and call these 3 people. And then when you call them, you have intention behind what you're saying. It's an intentional conversation and it leads to the outcome that you want. Guys, this is a big deal, man. I mean, this is a big deal. Zach, what are some of the other big blocks that you put in your schedule that were really that are crucial when you're, producing at a high level, crucial now? Like, what are some of the big blocks that you're like, I got to fit these in and fit everything else around them?
The other thing I want to mention with schedule, dude, is I also did that 2 months out, and I would plan it out so I could see if and when I need to do travel trips. And then also, like, if I was doing 20 appointments this week, I knew how many leads I needed to get my 20. And you'll be able to establish those numbers once you do it for a while. You know how many leads you need to get your 20 appointments. Then I know if I have 40 the next week, I can plan a couple weeks in advance to be able to double down on my lead flow and have plenty of leads to work, right? So I think it's the schedule thing we can't hit on enough is so crucial. And that's what changed my business for me. And I thought I didn't do it early because I was like, it makes sense that people like Paul and Sean and all these other people that have kids and a bunch of responsibilities would need it because you have got stuff going on. And I was like, I was 22. I was like, dude, I was 22 years old. I don't need a schedule because I can work whenever I want. I don't really have a lot of responsibilities. And that crippled me because every time I was hanging out with my wife, I thought I should be working. Every time I was working, I thought I should be hanging out with her because I had no set in stone schedule. And it actually is kind of taxing on your relationship too, because then you're never paying attention and then they never know what your schedule is. So now we set it all out 2 months in advance. We write in everything I'm doing with her and her family. And dude, this weekend, we're going to her sister's medical school graduation in Texas, but that's been on the schedule for 2 months. So we know it's coming. Everything's planned around it already, right? So I won't take a hit on my business. I'll get everything done ahead of time. I'll still be on the phone while we're there, but I know it's coming. It's built into all the activity I need to do around it. As far as, so like, I guess I want to cover this as far as schedule. So the beginning of 2020, we weren't where we wanted to be, right? At all. I've been here for 2 years, about 2 years. We should be here. We're kind of lagging behind. Like, what do I need to do? And I realized that I still needed the cash flow to run the business because I wasn't great at building. So I needed enough money to put into stuff to figure out what to do. And I needed good staff to help me, right? And I was like, how do I balance helping my staff and running enough appointments, still getting 30 appointments in a week, writing 50 grand a month? Like, how do I still do all this and build a business? And what I made the decision was, I was like, okay, I'm going to work every day this year. And then we're going to get to a point where we get so big and I can't be in the field. I can focus all my time building. Right. So what I did is I started where I would I'd be in the office at 7:30 I'd be in there at 7 on Thursday. And from 7 to 7:30, I got all my stuff together. I collected my thoughts. Maybe I read a couple pages of a book. I just prepared for the day for a couple minutes right before I got started. Right. I woke up at 5 o'clock, went to the gym, done by 6, got to hang out with my wife for a couple minutes, and then went to the office by 7, right? Soon as 7:30 hit, I was dialing from 7:30 till 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, and my goal was just to set up Saturday, okay? And then come 10 o'clock rest of the day, I was working on building, meaning I was talking to my staff, agents in the office, I was helping them learn how to dial, I was doing trainings, I was working with people, I was hiring, okay? And then Friday, I would do the same thing. I'd start at 7:30 and then I would dial till 10 or 11 or 12, however long I needed to finish up setting up Saturday and Sunday. And then I would run 11 or 12 appointments each day on Saturday and Sunday. And if I didn't get to 15 grand over the weekend, I would run 5 appointments on Wednesday too, to get to my 15 grand. Because I was like, I need 15 grand a month. That gives me, or 15 grand a week gives me 60 a month. That means I'll at least issue 50, which is enough to run my business, right? So I'm going to do that. And I did that every single week. I didn't take a single day off, right? All last year, I did it every single day. If in the days that I was not in the field, I was still in the office working on recruiting, helping my staff get better. Because I was really frustrated with my staff, dude, and they were good, but they didn't know what I needed done because I didn't spend any time training them because I was always in the field. So I built in the running Saturday, Sunday where they weren't going to be working anyways. And then I just built in a couple evenings if I needed to get my 15K still. And then I started working and training my staff, and magically they got better because they actually had expectations for what they were supposed to do, right? I didn't use magically sarcastically, but they got better because they knew what they needed to do. And I actually spent time training them. And I did that every month through October. And then I got out of the field in October because we were just getting too big, too fat. I couldn't stay with it anymore. We went from doing 150 to like 900 grand that month, right? And the point of me saying that is I love running business and being in the field, but everything got too crazy with the business. And if that's your goal is to build $1 million agency, you're going to have to give up something for a year, and go really hard at it. And we've seen other people do it, dude. Dave, who has more experience, probably definitely better recruiter than I am, did the same thing in a year. But you can the way I looked at it is I can either go all in for a year, or we can keep this incremental, borderline pathetic growth pace going, right? And maybe we'll get to $1 million in 3 years from now. And then the door on all the exciting stuff that's happening with FFL, like integrity, is going to be closed. Or I could go all in for 1 year, work 80 to 100 hours a week and leave it all on the table. And if it doesn't work, at least I gave it my best. But I didn't want to be the guy, where in 30 years, I'm sitting there like, man, I was a part of that company and I really could have made something of it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be that person, and that's kind of one of the things that drove me. And I also felt a sense of responsibility to my wife because I asked her to sacrifice a lot of time, me not being around, So I felt a sense of responsibility to build something that could give our future family generational wealth. And I want to be, dude, what started to drive me was hearing people like you and Andrew talk about, we have kids now, we're able to go to everything. And I was like, dude, I want that. Like, I want to be able to coach my future kids games or go to, ballerina or whatever happens. I want to be able to be available to go to that stuff and be able to answer the phone. I don't want to have to be grinding out in the field forever, because I'm going to miss all this stuff if I don't take care of it right now. So what I think a lot of people are like, how are you stay so driven when you're young? I get people that are older that have families that are like, I got to get this done now. But what started driving me was the idea of being able to spend all this time with my future family and be able to set them up and make sure they never have to worry about money. And that started really driving me when it became about them and like a fictional family, right? But like my wife, and then I also wanted to make sure she's going through medical school. I'm like, by the time she's done, all her debt's going to be paid off. She won't have to worry about anything. She can just focus on studying. And she can do everything because she's always wanted to be a doctor, right? So she can just only focus on becoming the best doctor she can be without having to stress about where's money coming from, what am I going to do with, how am I going to pay these bills, how much more loans do I need to take out, am I ever going to pay these loans off? It's like she doesn't have to worry about any of that. She just has to focus on studying and becoming the best she can be. And that's the stuff that started driving me when it was Sunday at 8 a.m. and I'm leaving my house, dude, and everyone's sleeping. And I'm like, man, it'd be nice to lay in bed for a couple more hours, right? I go to church at 7, I'm done. I'm done. 8 o'clock, I'm out. I'm going on appointments. And that's the stuff that kept me going. Cause that's, dude, was it fun? I had a blast. But would I want to do it for the next 30 years? I don't know. I would probably die if I did it for the next 30 years, right? But now we've gotten to a point where I can teach other people to do the same thing. Here's the blueprint for doing nothing basically as an agency to getting to $1 million and not being that good at recruiting, but just having enough money to throw into stuff to where eventually it'll grow.
Right. Well, dude, I'll tell you what, man. And when I say this, I mean it. This was, I don't want to offend anybody else that's been on the Monday Morning Wake Up podcast, but I think this is my favorite. Dude. There's so much packed into this, and I think there's so much value here, dude. Everything you just said was so good. Knowing your why, what's going to drive you, because you might have one in front of you, but if you don't have it in you, it's just not going to do the same. It's not going to pull you up and pull you through to where you want to go. And man, the short-term price for long-term gain, playing the infinite game, not this finite. It's just, there's so many things that are like, God, so good. Dude, thank you for sharing. Guys, this is one that you share. So if you're like, should I share this with that person? Yes. They're not in the business. Well, this is one of those, it'll help them no matter where they're at. This is the stuff that will lead you to an elite life, a next level life. And it's just good, dude. So thank you for sharing, Zach. I appreciate you, man. And dude, we're gonna have to do this again, man. You might be you already been on once, so this is the second one, dude. I think you and one other have been on twice. You might be the first one that's gonna be on it 3 times, man, because there's so much value in this, dude. So appreciate you, bro. Thank you for joining, guys. Make it a big week. Stay strong, be steadfast, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Well, how awesome was that podcast with Paul and Zach? And now is the awesome moment that I love doing every single week. We're going to give $250 away in lead credit. If you commented on last week's video, then you are automatically entered to win $250 in lead credit. I'm going to click this button behind me. It's going to roll through the names of whoever commented, and whoever wins, you know how it works. If you want a chance to win this week, just comment down below and you're automatically entered to win $250 in lead credit. Without further ado, let's get this cracking. Let's see who won. Jeffrey Gardner, you just won yourself $250 in lead credit. I love your comment. We are here to help families. Be genuine. Don't turn them off with commission breath. I love that. Congratulations, Jeffrey. Thank you. If you want to be like Jeffrey and win $250 just like that, feel free. Just comment down below. That's all you got to do, guys. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.